We've already reviewed LG's latest curved smartphone in its global form, but we promised you follow-up coverage on the US model when it became available, and now we're here to do just that. I'm Hayato Huseman with Pocketnow, taking a look at the LG G Flex 2 for Sprint. If there's one thing to be said about the G Flex 2, it's that this thing is flashy. The arched design and the volcano red back make it one of the most eye-catching smartphones on the market, and the Sprint model remains totally unchanged in that way. The phone measures 9.4mm at its thickest point and weighs in at just 152 grams, and it's just one of the most comfortable phones I think I've ever used. The trademark feature of the G Flex 2 is, of course, its curved design, which conforms perfectly to the palm of your hand and along your face, and it makes for a slightly immersive experience when you're watching videos. There's also the rear-mounted control scheme that puts the power and volume buttons right where your finger naturally rests, and makes room to fit as much screen in as little space as possible. What I'm getting at is, this phone is carefully designed to be entirely ergonomic, and it's one of LG's biggest victories with the device. Packed inside is the Snapdragon 810 chipset, sitting alongside 3GB of RAM and an Adreno 430 GPU. There's also a 3000 mAh battery and a 13-megapixel camera with laser autofocus and optical image stabilization, an increasing rarity in today's smartphones. Another rare inclusion here is the microSD slot with support for a maximum 2TB card. Now, the biggest difference between this model and the South Korean model that Michael Fisher tested back in February is also the most obvious one: compatibility with Sprint's Spark LTE network. The phone comes preloaded with a bevy of Sprint applications, none of which we really found particularly useful, but thankfully most of them can be disabled or uninstalled. The one new feature that we're glad to see here is Wi-Fi calling, something previously only found on T-Mobile phones. You can make your cheap jabs at Sprint for even needing a feature like this, but the fact of the matter is, every carrier has dead spots, and it's better to embrace that and be prepared. Aside from that, this is largely the same software experience that Michael touched on in his review. There's still the awesome double tap to wake function and its evolved form knock code, and plenty of customization options like being able to change the buttons in your navigation bar. Especially on a 5.5-inch display, it's really nice to have a button to call down the notification shade without having to contort your thumb. There's also LG's peek function, which lets you slide a finger down the screen when the display is off to preview the time and any new notifications. Something else you can do with the display off is launch the camera with a long press of the volume down key. The viewfinder is largely the same one that we found on the G3, and we appreciate its clean and simple UI, even if it's sometimes a little confusing. The camera itself takes pretty great photos in broad daylight, and thanks to OIS, videos look reasonably smooth as well, but don't expect the same story indoors. Once the sun is out of sight, saturation takes a pretty big hit, and shots turn fuzzy fast. It's not unmanageable, but if you spend a lot of time in dimly lit areas, this may not be the camera for you. When Michael reviewed the G Flex 2, his biggest concerns were with the phone's performance and battery life. Neither of those things were particularly great with my Sprint unit, but it's worth noting that my time with the phone showed significantly less lag than his reports. Whether that's the result of a much-needed software update or a difference in hardware beyond the two variants, we're not sure, but beyond the occasional one-and-done stutter, I never really ran into any major performance issues. Apps and games ran smoothly in my testing, and I was always able to stream music from Spotify in the background without tripping up the phone, but it's quick to let me know when apps like Spotify might lead to battery drain. That drain's pretty significant, and no matter how I use the phone throughout the day, it never lasts me more than 4.5 hours of screen on time. This might be forgivable if you could replace the battery on the go, but with a sealed-in unit, you can't. The G Flex 2 is available at Sprint right now with a retail price of $500, and especially given the specs inside and the great design, that's a really good deal. The phone got a lot of flack in the first wave of reviews for its performance issues, but at this point I'm convinced that the only reason not to buy it is because we already know that the G4 is coming. But even the G4 can't offer the same wow factor, the same ergonomics, the same pizzazz, and if that's your thing, maybe you should pay a visit to the Now Network. That's going to do it for our video review of the Sprint G Flex 2. If you want even more info on this phone, might I recommend reading our written review at Pocketnow.com. But before you go there, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel for more video content, and drop us a like and a comment below. Once again, I'm Hayato Huseman, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.